Alright guys, we're gonna do a review of the Oxbot Champ stack here. It's a really cool stack that a lot of us received during I.O. Thanks to Joshua, who brought a whole bunch of these and he gave away a whole lot of these. A lot of people actually already built and flew them, and a lot of them gave really good compliments about the stack. And today I'm just gonna try to go through the features of this stack and tell you a little bit more about what it is, what it's got inside, and some of the major features. Alright, first off, let's look at the design of this FC. As you can see, it's really thin. A lot of times when you build your stacks, especially your race quad, you want it to be very thin, and you want to be able to stack it just close enough to the ESC if you have a little bit of air. But a lot of times it's the plugs on these stacks that are kind of hitting each other, so you have to leave enough space. But for this one, the design is just really good. You can see that it's got kind of two layers of PCB. These plugs, where you put these plugs here, where you use for the VTX, USB, and the connectors to the ESC, they're really small. It's really designed so that you can put everything very tight together. If you measure it, the thickest part would probably be where the plugs are and the USB are. This is only 5.23 millimeters. Compared to what I've always been using, this is the Foxier one. Where the plug is, where the plug and the diode is, it's actually 7 millimeters. So there's almost a 2 mil difference, and 2 mils can make quite a bit of difference if your stacks, if your standoffs are going from 22 mil to 2 mil, you're saving a few grams already on the standoffs as well as the stack screws. So if we look more in detail, these components are really packed very tight together. There's almost no extra room anywhere. So it's super compact. A lot of times when you look at these FCs, the pads are super small, but these ones are really actually quite big if you compare it side by side to the Foxier ones. But it's got a whole lot of feature, and I'm going to go into it right now. First off is an H7 chip. If you actually look at this here, the F7 chip is actually 216 megahertz, while the H7 is 480, which is more than 2 times the amount of frequency that it operates at, which means that it could actually detect stuff much earlier. It could have a much quicker response. So technically, you could be able to do real-time filter and vibration detection much earlier than the F7s. Second of all, it's got two backs, the dual backs. One is a normal 5 amp to 5-volt 2 amps, which is used for things like your RX or LEDs. And then you've also got the 9-volt or 5-volt 2 amp back for your VTX. It could be the DJI VTX or the HD0 VTX. depending on what you're using this for. It's also got Bluetooth, which is kind of not necessary for race builds, but you can imagine that a lot of builds, it's just really hard for people to access the USB port or something. Then you can use Bluetooth to connect and change any parameters you need. It's also got a lot of LED pads. As you can see, all 4 corners have LED pads, but at the same time, it's also got these plugs here. So these plugs in the front are the connectors to the ESC. These ones at the back are for the LEDs. They actually provide you with this really tiny plug. It's what you use for the HD0 firmware update. It's that size. I don't know what it's called, but it's super small. All the wires are super thin, so they save a whole lot of weight. Technically, you don't really have to solder anything other than the RX when you're doing this build. I don't have the LEDs with me, but these plugs, this FC is also designed to be used with the LEDs that are using these plugs here. So the LEDs are super small. They're just super tiny. The plugs are small, so the weight, it's just minimalistic, even smaller than whatever people have been using out there, for example the HGLRC ones. And talk about features, the LED also make use of this button here. This is normally the boot button, but when it's already plugged in and started up, you use this button to change the color. I think double clicking it is changing the color, and then long pressing it is changing the brightness. So if it's really well placed. It's just right on the side here. So on your race build, you would basically be pressing the button right on the side of your stacks. There's no problem accessing it. A lot of times the older designs, there's a button on the controller where you kind of have to use some pointy things to poke at it. Next up is the PTX. So it's got a 5-volt or 9-volt pad right down here. It's super small. You probably can't see it that well, but by default it's 5-volt. If you change the soldering on the pads, you can make it default at 9 volts. But at the same time, it's also got some pads where you could join to make it, oh, here it is, right there, to make it into true pit when you flip a switch. So by default, it's just normal way. For example, when you're setting your pit in your Betaflight settings, when you map it to a switch, you're basically telling the PTX to go to pit mode, which is either 0 millivolts or very close to 0 millivolts. It doesn't turn off the PTX, so that way you're still drawing power to the PTX. The PTX would still be pretty warm. It won't be super hot, but it's still drawing currents. But if you actually use this, if you solder the pit pads here and you map user 1 to your PTX off switch, then it would probably turn off the power altogether to the PTX, which means that it's drawing 0 volts. And that means that it would stay super cool, especially in those FAI races where you kind of be waiting ages for people to run back and forth between very far takeoff areas. Okay, I think that's almost all of the features that I really like about this FC. And if you kind of put it together with the ESC, you will see that you can really crunch it very tight together. Obviously, it would be better if you kind of leave a little bit more room and air to cool it. The H7 is probably going to run hotter than the F7, but these MCUs can actually take on really high temperature, because when you're actually soldering them together, they actually go up to like 300 degrees Celsius, so it's really not a problem, to be honest. It's the VDX that you don't want to get hot, because it's going to degrade the transmission quality if it gets too hot. Next up, we got the ESC. As you can see, the plugs are just super small, super thin. The wires are so thin that I'm actually really worried about, snapping them when I'm putting it together. It's a bit long. If you look at it like that, it's actually a bit long. Like when you press it down together, it sticks out on to the front here. But you usually have the camera kind of lined up like this, so it doesn't really pose any problems. The ESC is actually a 60 amp ESC. It's got a 80 amp burst, and it says on the docks it goes up to 110 amps single channel. I don't know what that means, but I guess even at just 80, it's just good enough. It's got a TVS diode right there, and which means that it's going to help with these sparks or sudden voltage spikes. For example, like if you're flying and you clip a gate, there would probably be certain like voltage spike when the motors are suddenly like pushing to the max, and that would save you sometimes when you're using really bad ESCs. Just clipping something might have burnt something. One motor, one ESC. You never know. So it doesn't. The TVS doesn't solve the problem of filtering motor noise. So you still need the capacitor, which came with, like so. It's got this TPU here mount that I usually don't use, but it's just really nice that everything is already here. You just have to solder this onto the pads here, like so. Otherwise, this is different firmware. It's the Oxbot firmware. I've actually been flying this for a few months now, and it actually flies really well. I've been flying it since January maybe, or February. I've flown through the alpha, beta versions of this firmware. I provided a lot of feedbacks, and I've been flying it with the VCI motors, both the LTs as well as the UKs, but I've been flying them more on the LTs, which a lot of people had issues before, but with this ESC, there's totally no problem. My buddy Porkchop can attest to that. So the Oxbot firmware is actually the latest version. Actually, it's been aligned with BL Heli, so the settings are basically very, very similar to whatever you've been seeing on BL Heli firmware. And if you basically directly transfer whatever you have on those BL Helis onto these, it will just work. So there's no worry about what's on these firmware. It's just great, and it actually weighs quite light as well. I'm going to do a weight comparison later on. So that's actually all for these. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be building it out and flying it very soon, possibly with this interesting looking frame, or the frame that I'm trying to use to move my whole fleet onto, the Wiz racing frame. I'm just building it out right now. There's also a top and some screws here that I'm waiting for. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know. I'll be flying them. I'll be providing DVRs for them. Thanks for watching.